I was hiding in a restroom stall when my husband walked in with his mistress and bragged about how he'd take my money tonight. He thought I couldn't hear them. Before I start, please like this video, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. You're not ready for what happened next. I never thought the night that was supposed to celebrate my 10th wedding anniversary would be the night everything inside me broke. I remember the way the restaurant lights shimmered against the polished marble floors, how the soft jazz in the background almost lulled me into believing things were normal, safe, familiar. But they weren't. Something was wrong with my husband the second he stepped out of the car. He wouldn't stop checking his phone. He wouldn't look me in the eye for more than a second, like my face was suddenly too heavy for him to hold with his. And every time the screen lit up, he smiled. Not the warm smile I'd fallen in love with, but something quick and sharp, like a secret he couldn't wait to get back to. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, that maybe he was planning a surprise, or coordinating with a friend, or dealing with a stressful client like he always claimed. But the truth was dripping from his body language so loudly, I could almost hear it. He wasn't nervous because of business. He wasn't distracted because of stress. He was excited about something, or someone, and that alone made my stomach twist. When we sat down, he pretended to be present, asked me questions, nodded at my answers, but his eyes kept darting toward the entrance as if he was waiting for someone to walk in. Every time a server passed by, he jerked slightly, like he expected news, a signal, a sign. Then his phone buzzed again. He grabbed it so fast the table shifted. His thumb hovered over the screen before he angled it away from me. That was the moment I knew, truly knew, that whatever I feared was already happening. Even then, I wasn't prepared for the truth. The server poured wine. I barely touched mine. My husband, however, downed his like he was trying to chase a secret down his throat before it slipped out. When he excused himself to take a call, I watched him walk toward the hallway that led to the restrooms and staff area. I watched him look over his shoulder twice. I watched him smile at something on his phone as he disappeared around the corner. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel the echo in my teeth. I told myself not to follow him, that I would look crazy, jealous, paranoid. But then I felt something electric under my skin, an instinct I couldn't ignore. Women always know before they know. I stood up and walked slowly toward the hallway, telling myself I'd just go to the restroom, wash my hands, breathe. But halfway there, a wave of dizziness washed over me. Maybe stress, maybe hunger, maybe something else entirely, something I wouldn't understand until much later. I forced myself into the women's restroom, stumbled into the last stall, and sat down, pressing my fingertips to my temples. I needed a minute, just a minute, but that minute turned into the moment that shattered everything. The restroom door opened. I heard footsteps, a woman's heels first, then a man's shoes. And it wasn't the sound of someone barging into the wrong bathroom by mistake. It was too casual, too familiar, too secretive. And then I heard his voice, my husband, laughing, whispering. I froze. My lungs stopped halfway through a breath. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't dare make a sound. They didn't know I was there. They didn't check the stalls. They just stood in front of the mirrors like they owned the room. The woman spoke first. Her voice was young, smooth, confident. "So tonight's the night?" she asked. My husband let out a breathless laugh, the kind he used to give me when we were newlyweds, and he was excited about a promotion or a vacation. But now it was filled with something rotten. "Yeah," he said, "tonight's the night." My fingers gripped the sides of the toilet seat so hard they hurt. I couldn't see them, but I could picture him leaning close to her, probably grinning like a boy showing off a stolen toy. "You really think she has no idea?" the woman asked, almost teasing. "No idea," he repeated, with a smug certainty that made bile climb up my throat. There was a pause. Then he lowered his voice, a whisper so venomous I felt it slice straight into my spine. "By the time this night is over," he said, "I'm getting her money, all of it." My vision blurred. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. I covered my mouth to keep from gasping. He said it like it was nothing, like it was the weather, like my life, my marriage, my trust were simply stepping stones toward a payday. The woman giggled softly. "You're unbelievable," she said. "How are you going to pull it off?" He laughed again. A dark, confident laugh. "Don't worry," he said. "She'll drink what I give her. She always does." My stomach dropped so violently I thought I would faint. Drink what? What was he planning? Poison? Drugs? Something to make me sick? Something to make me look unstable? My mind spiraled. I pressed my palm flat against my chest, trying to slow the panic, but a colder thought slipped through the cracks. He didn't just want to take my money. He wanted to remove me. Tonight. The restroom suddenly felt too small, too airless, too dangerous. And I sat there, hidden behind a thin metal door, realizing I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. I was in real, immediate danger. And the man who promised to love me was planning to betray me in the cruelest, most calculated way imaginable. And worst of all, he thought I would never know. But I heard everything. And I knew this was only the beginning. I stayed frozen in that restroom stall long after their voices faded into the hallway, long after their footsteps disappeared back toward the dining room, long after the slow echo of the door swinging shut. My heart didn't settle. It just kept hammering like it was trying to punch its way out of my chest. I sat there gripping my knees, shaking so badly I had to clamp my jaw shut to keep my teeth from clicking together. I didn't know how long I stayed like that. Maybe a minute, maybe 10. Time didn't feel real anymore. The truth was too big to process. My husband didn't just cheat on me. He didn't just lie. He was planning something. Something that involved my money and me drinking something he handed me. Something that had to happen tonight. My throat tightened until I could barely swallow. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to run, but I was terrified to even stand up. What if he came back? What if the restroom door opened again, and this time he checked the stalls? What would I say? What would he do if he knew what I'd heard? I pressed my fingertips to the lock on the door, hesitated, and only then realized my hands were trembling. I wasn't safe. Not in that stall, not in that restaurant, not with him waiting just a hallway away. I had to get out, but I couldn't let him suspect anything. I couldn't just bolt from the restroom and sprint for the exit. He'd know. And if he knew that I knew, I didn't doubt for a second he'd act faster. And if he truly had something planned for tonight, something in my drink, something that relied on me cooperating, then me acting strangely would force his hand. I forced myself to breathe. One breath. Another. I listened for voices, for footsteps, for the sound of him calling my name. Nothing. Slowly, quietly, I unlocked the stall. The metal latch clicked too loud in the silence, and I froze again. No one came. I pushed the door open and stepped out. My reflection in the restroom mirror startled me. I already looked like a woman who'd survived something. Wide eyes, pale face, lips pressed tight to stop them from shaking. I splashed cold water on my cheeks to hide the tear streaks he might notice. Then I walked slowly, deliberately, toward the door. But before I could touch the handle, I heard something that made my blood run cold. His voice, right outside the door. "She's been gone a long time. You think she's okay?" He didn't sound worried. He sounded annoyed, impatient, like he needed me to move to the next step of whatever plan he had. The mistress replied, her voice lower now. "Relax. She won't suspect a thing. Just stick to the schedule. Don't panic. Schedule." The word made my stomach twist again. They had a schedule, a timeline, something they needed me to do next. And if I didn't want to think about that. I waited behind the restroom door, holding my breath as their voices trailed off and their footsteps faded again. When I could no longer hear them, I cracked the door open an inch, peeked into the hallway, and stepped out like nothing was wrong. I walked back toward the dining room with the careful, forced calm of someone holding a bomb inside their chest. He was already at the table, sitting casually, scrolling through his phone like a man with a clear conscience. When he looked up at me, his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Everything okay?" he asked. I swallowed hard. "Yeah," I said. "Just needed a minute." He nodded like he expected that answer. Then he lifted a glass toward me, not my wine glass, a different one, something clear, something he had ordered while I was gone. The sight of it made my pulse spike. "Here," he said, pushing it gently toward me. "You should try this. It'll help you relax." My mouth went dry. He waited, watching me, too closely, too carefully, like he was studying my reaction. I forced myself to smile, just a tiny one. "Thanks," I whispered. My fingertips touched the cold glass, and in that moment, I knew without a doubt that if I drank it, everything would end tonight. I lifted it, slowly, too slowly. He was watching every move. I tilted it toward my lips, feeling the first drop touch my mouth, but I didn't let any inside. I let it slide back into the glass so gently he didn't notice. "Good, right?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Really good." He relaxed, satisfied. I set the glass down and pretended to be calm. But inside, panic was clawing at me like an animal trying to get out. I needed a way to escape, but I also needed to know why. Why now? Why me? What money? I knew we shared accounts. I knew we had savings, but none of it was enough for murder. Unless there was something I didn't know, something he'd taken out in my name, a policy, a loan, a document he forged, something worth enough to kill for. As I sat there, pretending to eat, pretending to smile, pretending to be the clueless wife he needed me to be, my mind raced through every possibility, every conversation, every strange moment over the last few months. Had this been building longer than I realized? Had I missed signs? Had I ignored things because I loved him? I lifted my napkin to wipe my lips and saw something white in the corner of my vision. His phone screen, a text preview from a number I didn't recognize. "Is it done yet?" My heart slammed once, then twice. I looked away quickly before he caught me staring. I was in real danger. Not imagined danger, not the kind you exaggerate or misinterpret. Real danger with real stakes and real planning behind it. I needed help, but I couldn't pull out my phone. I couldn't let him see me text. I couldn't ask the server because he watched them too closely. I couldn't stand up because he would follow me. Every option felt like a trap, until one thought hit me like a spark in the dark. My sister. She lived close, and she knew me better than anyone. If I could get even a tiny message out, something vague enough not to alert him, but clear enough that she'd understand, maybe I had a chance. My husband raised his glass. "To us," he said. The words hit me like poison. I lifted my glass and clinked his. The moment he looked down at his plate, I slipped my phone under the table and typed with trembling thumbs. "I need you. Emergency. Come now." I hit send. Then I hid the phone in my lap and forced myself to breathe. If she didn't see it soon, I was on my own. And I didn't know how much time I had left, because across from me, my husband smiled. A slow, chilling smile. One that told me he believed tonight would end with me gone, and the worst part was, he wasn't wrong. Not yet. Not unless I figured out how to survive the night. The moment I sent that message to my sister, a tiny spark of hope flickered in my chest, but it was immediately smothered by the realization that I couldn't let him notice even a hint of change in my behavior. Everything depended on him believing I was still clueless, still docile, still exactly the woman he thought he had manipulated for years. He lifted his fork and stabbed into his steak with a kind of satisfaction that churned my stomach. He chewed slowly, watching me as if he were studying the progress of his plan, checking for cracks. I forced myself to take a bite of my food even though my throat felt like it was closing. "You seem quiet tonight," he said. His tone was light, casual, but his eyes were slicing through me like knives. "Just tired," I replied, keeping my voice soft. Not too soft, just soft enough. "Long day at work." He nodded thoughtfully. "Well, tonight will help you relax." The double meaning behind that sentence nearly made the food rise in my throat. I took a sip of water just to keep from shaking, but even then, I felt his gaze tracking the movement of my glass like he was calculating something. Every look he gave me felt loaded. Every smile came with a hidden blade. I kept my posture steady, but inside, terror pulsed like a drumbeat. If my sister didn't see the message, if she didn't come, I had no backup plan. I wasn't sure I'd make it out of the restaurant alive. He kept talking as if nothing were wrong. Updates from work, a story about a coworker, something trivial about a client who annoyed him. All of it felt like noise, distractions, the patter of a predator soothing its prey. But beneath his voice, I heard something else, a rhythm, a timing, a deliberate pacing of the evening. He checked his watch twice. He texted someone once. His foot tapped under the table. He was waiting for something. Or someone. When the server approached with dessert menus, he waved them away. "No dessert tonight," he said. "We have plans at home." My pulse spiked so hard, I felt a sharp pain under my ribs. Home. The word dropped like a stone into my stomach. If he got me out of the restaurant and into the car, everything would move out of public view, and then nothing would stop him. I swallowed hard and reached for my water again, buying myself seconds of thought. If I refused to leave, he'd get suspicious. If I stalled too long, the schedule he and that woman whispered about in the restroom would fall apart. And if the schedule fell apart, he would improvise. A man like him was capable of anything when cornered. I needed more time, just enough for my sister to arrive. But how? He stood up, adjusting his jacket, clearing his throat like a man ready to wrap up the night. "Come on," he said. "Let's get out of here." My legs felt like they were made of cement. I forced myself to stand. Just as I did, my phone buzzed once in my lap. My heart flipped. A text, but I didn't dare look. Not with him watching me. "Ready?" he asked. He sounded polite to anyone who might overhear, but there was a pressure underneath the word, a command disguised as courtesy. "Yeah," I whispered. "Just let me use the restroom once more." His eyes sharpened instantly. Again, my blood turned to ice. I realized my mistake the second the word slipped out. Going back to the restroom was risky because it connected too directly to the moment his mistress and he had spoken earlier. He couldn't know I'd been there, couldn't know I'd heard. "Just to fix my makeup," I said, forcing a small laugh. "You know me." He watched me for 1, 2, 3 seconds too long. My throat tightened. Then he sighed and nodded. "Fine, I'll pay the bill." I turned toward the hallway. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to walk naturally. Once I turned the corner, out of his sight, I pulled my phone from my lap so fast it nearly slipped from my fingers. My sister's message was short. "I'm here. Where are you?" Relief flooded through me so hard I almost cried. I typed quickly while walking into the restroom. "Don't come inside. He'll see you. Wait near the entrance." I hit send as I closed myself inside the same stall where my world had shattered minutes earlier. I locked it, leaned against the wall, tried to gather whatever courage I had left. But before I could calm myself, the restroom door opened again. My body froze. Footsteps, slow, heavy. Not heels, not a woman, a man. My blood ran cold. I pressed my hand over my mouth and barely breathed. One step, another. The footsteps came closer. I could hear breathing, male breathing. Quiet, but not quiet enough. My husband's voice filled the air, low and cold. "If you're in here," he said, "come out." The edges of my vision blurred. He was suspicious, too suspicious. I stayed completely still. "You know," he continued, "you've been acting strange tonight." My lungs ached from holding my breath. "And I don't like strange." The footsteps paused right in front of my stall. Silence stretched so long I felt myself slipping into panic. Then the doorknob rattled. My entire body jolted. He tested the lock. Slowly, methodically. "Locked," he said. Not surprised, not confused. Just noticing, just cataloging. Then, to my horror, he lowered himself, and I saw the shadow of his shoes shift, as if he were crouching, like he was trying to look under the stall. I backed up silently, pressing myself flat against the wall, lifting my feet just enough so he couldn't see the tips of my shoes. His breathing grew slightly louder. "Come out," he said again. No warmth, no patience, just command. My hands shook uncontrollably. If he pushed hard enough, the lock could snap. They always seemed flimsy. And if he got inside... My phone buzzed again. A sound so small, yet so deadly that I nearly screamed. I slapped my hand over it instantly, praying the stall walls muffled it. His voice dropped. Dangerous now. "Who are you texting?" I couldn't answer. I didn't dare. The doorknob rattled again, harder this time. Open the door. My mind raced. If he forced his way in, I was finished. I needed a distraction. Anything. I glanced at the toilet paper holder. A small metal box with a flap. I took a breath and slammed my foot against it. The metal clanged loudly, echoing through the restroom like a gunshot. It was risky, stupid even, but it worked. He stood up sharply. "What the hell?" His footsteps moved fast toward the restroom door. He yanked it open. "Everything all right in there?" a server's voice asked from outside. My husband paused. Then his voice changed instantly, flipping into a perfect imitation of concern. "Yes, sorry. My wife's not feeling well. I'm just checking on her. Should I get her some water?" "No, thank you. She'll be fine." The door shut again. His footsteps returned toward me faster this time, angry now but then stopped. Silence. Then the door opened again, and this time his voice faded into the hallway. He left, finally. But not because he believed me. He left because someone saw him. I slid down the stall wall, shaking uncontrollably, trying to catch my breath without sobbing. I had seconds, maybe minutes. Tonight wasn't just dangerous, it was fatal. I stood, unlocked the stall, and stared at myself in the mirror. A woman who had no choice left except to survive. And the moment I stepped out of the restroom, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. If I walked out of that restaurant with him, I wouldn't be walking out again. When I stepped out of the restroom, the hallway looked too bright, too exposed, like every light was pointing directly at me. I forced my shaky legs to move, one step at a time, toward the dining room. I didn't see him at first, which terrified me more than seeing him would have. A predator you can see is predictable. A predator who disappeared is chaos. I scanned the room, couples chatting, a family laughing, a waiter lighting a candle. But not him, not anywhere. My heart began hammering again, and my throat tightened like a fist had wrapped around it. Then I spotted him. He was standing near the entrance, talking to someone on the phone, expression tight. His voice was low, controlled, but I recognized the posture. He was angry, and he was trying to hide it. When he turned and saw me walking toward him, his face softened instantly into a gentle smile that made my blood freeze. "Feeling better?" he asked as he slipped his phone into his jacket pocket. The mask was perfect, the performance flawless. "Yeah," I whispered, hoping my voice didn't betray me. "Just needed a minute." He held out his hand as if he were some caring husband. "Ready to go?" My stomach twisted violently. If I took that hand, I was dead. Maybe not tonight in front of people, but soon, very soon. My sister was outside. I needed to reach her, but I couldn't run. Running would be a confession. I forced a smile and took his hand, shocking myself with how steady I kept my fingers. "Let's go," I said. Each step toward the restaurant door felt like descending staircases into some place I'd never escape. But just as the door came into view, something shifted. My husband stiffened, almost imperceptibly, but enough that I felt it through his grip. I followed his gaze. My sister was standing near the entrance, pretending to scroll through her phone, but she was too tense, too alert. And he noticed. His fingers tightened around mine. "Is that—" he began. "Oh!" I interrupted quickly, acting surprised. "That's my sister." A beat, a pause, a calculation behind his eyes. "I didn't know she'd be here," I added with a small laugh, trying to sound genuinely confused. He watched her for a long second, too long. "Really?" "Yeah," I said with a shrug. Total coincidence. He didn't believe me. I felt it. But he didn't know the truth either. Not yet. And this moment, this tiny moment, was my only chance. "Hey," my sister called out, lifting her hand. I was nearby and thought I'd stop by to say hi before heading home. She smiled at him, too warmly, too politely. She was trying to help me, but she didn't know the rules of the game. My husband stepped forward, still holding my wrist. "Nice to see you," he said smoothly. "We were just leaving." His grip tightened again. A warning. My sister nodded slowly, reading something in his tone. "Actually," she said, "could I borrow her for just a minute? Something quick." My husband's jaw twitched, barely noticeable to someone who didn't know him, but I did. That tiny movement meant danger. "It's late," he said, his tone shifting. Too firm, too final. "We really need to go." My sister caught the shift too. Her eyes sharpened. "It's important," she said quietly. He stared at her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "It can wait." I felt my sister's panic rising. the same panic boiling in my chest. She stepped closer. "Please," she said softly, "just 1 minute." Silence stretched tight between them. I felt his grip on me harden, fingers pressing into my pulse. "No," he said. My sister's expression changed. She didn't raise her voice, didn't move, didn't argue. She simply reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. "Okay," she said, "then I'll ask her right here." My husband didn't like that. His fingers dug deeper into my wrist. "Ask her what?" he demanded. My sister looked directly at me. "Are you okay?" My breath caught. The world froze. People around us kept walking, kept laughing, kept eating, unaware that one question had just cracked open the entire moment. My husband slowly turned his eyes to me, waiting, expecting, daring me. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. He squeezed my wrist so hard pain shot up my arm, and I winced. My sister saw it. Her eyes widened. That was all it took. She stepped between us, literally stepped into his path. "Let her go," she said. He laughed. A cold, flat sound. "You're overreacting. Let her go." He didn't move, didn't blink. His smile thinned. "She's my wife. She's my sister," she shot back. People had started turning their heads now, watching. Not interfering, but watching. My husband realized it too. His grip loosened just enough for me to pull my hand back. I stepped away from him and moved to my sister's side. The tension in his expression cracked. For the first time all night, I saw something new in his eyes. Not calculation, not anger, not control. Panic. He masked it quickly, but not fast enough. "What's going on?" he demanded. "Why are you acting like this?" My sister slipped her arm around my shoulders protectively. "She'll leave with me," she said. "You can go home alone." "No," he snapped. Too sharp, too loud. The people watching frowned. My sister's voice stayed calm. "She's not going with you." He took a step toward us, but the restaurant manager appeared suddenly, sensing conflict. "Is everything all right here?" My husband froze. He couldn't cause a scene. Not here, not publicly. He straightened, forcing a smile that looked strained and unnatural. "Yes," he said. "Just a misunderstanding." The manager looked at me. "Ma'am?" My throat felt raw. But I managed to say, "I'm fine. Just going with my sister." My husband's smile flickered, almost breaking. The manager nodded and walked away. My husband leaned in slightly and whispered, too quietly for anyone else to hear, "We'll talk later." His tone, that tone, it was a promise, a threat, a certainty. He stepped back, gave a polite nod to my sister, and walked straight out of the restaurant. The second he was gone, my legs buckled. My sister grabbed me, holding me up as tears I didn't even feel coming slid down my cheeks. "We need to go," she whispered. "Now." I nodded, still shaking. But as she guided me toward the exit, I glanced out the front windows and saw him, standing by the car, not getting in, not leaving, just staring at the door, waiting, watching, calculating. My sister tightened her grip on me as we stepped outside. "Don't look at him," she whispered. But I did, and the expression on his face made my blood turn ice cold. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't pretending. He was planning. And whatever he planned next would be worse. Much worse. My sister practically dragged me to her car, her arm tight around my shoulders as if she expected him to sprint toward us at any second. And honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if he did. Every few steps, I glanced back, expecting to see him rushing forward, yelling, grabbing me, forcing me into his car. But instead, he just stood there across the parking lot, hands in his pockets, body still, expression unreadable in the dim glow of the streetlights. That stillness terrified me more than any shouting could have. He looked like someone mentally rewriting his plan because the first version had just fallen apart. "Don't look at him," my sister whispered, unlocking her car with shaking hands. "Just get in." I obeyed, sliding into the passenger seat. She jumped in beside me, started the engine, and locked the doors in one frantic motion. But she didn't pull out of the parking space, not yet. Instead, she gripped the steering wheel, breathing hard, staring straight ahead. "Tell me," she said. Her voice was low, tense, shaking with fury she was trying to hold together. "Tell me exactly why he grabbed your wrist like that. Tell me why you texted me the way you did. Tell me why he looks like he'd rather see us both dead than watch you leave with me." I opened my mouth to speak, but my voice failed, completely. She reached over and gently touched my hand. "It's okay," she whispered. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." My throat squeezed so tight I thought I'd choke. I stared out the window instead, and that's when I saw him again. Still watching us, still not moving. But now his head tilted slightly, almost curious, like he was waiting to see which direction we'd drive, like he wanted to follow. Panic shot through me. "Drive," I whispered. My sister didn't question it. She reversed fast, tires crunching against the gravel. As she pulled out, his figure disappeared behind a passing car, but reappeared in the rearview mirror a moment later. That was the last image I saw before we turned onto the main road. A dark silhouette. Still. Waiting. Hunting. The moment he vanished from the mirror, my sister pressed harder on the gas. "Okay," she said, voice shaking. "Now talk." I stared at my hands resting on my lap. They didn't feel like my own hands anymore. Nothing about my body felt familiar. Everything was buzzing, trembling, vibrating with leftover fear. But I forced myself to speak. Because if I didn't say it out loud, if I didn't put the truth into the air, then part of me would still wonder if I imagined it. "He wants my money," I said. My sister frowned. "What? Why?" "I don't know," I whispered, "but that's what he said. To her." Silence filled the car so thick it felt like smoke. My sister turned to stare at me in horror. "To who?" I inhaled shakily. "His mistress." Her fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "He has a mistress." I nodded. I heard them talking in the restroom hallway. I hid in a stall. I heard everything. I recited the conversation word for word. How he bragged about getting my money tonight. How the mistress laughed like it was a joke they rehearsed. How they talked about the schedule. How they mentioned something I'd be drinking. My sister said nothing. She just kept gripping the wheel, her knuckles going white. "And he gave me a drink," I said. "A new one. He wanted me to try it." Her breath hitched. "Did you?" "No," I answered weakly. I pretended to. She exhaled a shaky breath of relief. But then her jaw tightened. "He wanted to drug you." I stared ahead, numb. Or worse. For a moment neither of us spoke. The night outside blurred by the windows. Streetlights, empty sidewalks, quiet homes. All the normal pieces of the world moving past us, while my life felt like it was spiraling into something dark and cinematic. Something unreal. After a long silence, my sister whispered, "This is bigger than cheating." "I know." "This is bigger than money too." I swallowed hard. "I know." She gripped the wheel. "He's planning something violent." My voice cracked. "I think so too." Another stretch of heavy silence. Then she asked the question I was avoiding. "Do you think he'd kill you?" Something inside me snapped. The last thread of denial I'd been clinging to ripped apart. I whispered the truth I didn't want to hear myself say. "Yes." My sister slammed the brakes at a red light, shaking, tears forming in her eyes. "Then you're staying with me?" she said. End of discussion. And for the first time tonight, I felt a sliver of safety. A sliver, but safety. Until I saw something in the mirror. Headlights. 2 cars back. My stomach plummeted. "Don't panic," I whispered, my voice trembling. "But I think he's following us." My sister's head jerked toward the rearview mirror. "That's him?" "I think so." She inhaled sharply and made a decision, instantly turning left instead of going straight when the light turned green. A sharp turn, sudden, deliberate. I twisted in my seat to look. The car behind us hesitated for a second, then turned left too. My heart dropped. My sister's voice turned cold, controlled, the way it did when she handled emergencies at her job. "Hold on," she said, and she stepped on the gas. We sped down the road. The car behind us sped up too. My sister made a quick right. He made the same. She made a left. He followed. Panic surged through every nerve in my body. "He's not giving up," I whispered. "No," she muttered, her jaw clenched. "He's not." She suddenly swung into a crowded gas station, pulling up behind a large SUV that blocked us from view. The car behind us sped past fast, too fast, like he didn't want to be seen stopping. "Wait," she whispered. We sat hidden, watching through the gaps between cars. His vehicle slowed half a block away, searching, waiting. Then it turned into a side street, out of sight. My sister finally exhaled. I collapsed back into the seat, trembling. "We can't go to my apartment," she said. "He knows where I live." "Then where?" I whispered. She reached for her phone. "Someone he can't manipulate, someone who won't hesitate, someone loud." She typed fast. Then she said the one name I hadn't expected. "We're going to Mom's." My blood ran cold. "He hates Mom." "Exactly," my sister replied. "That means she's the one place he'll never step foot." I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. Maybe she was right. Maybe Mom's house was safe. But as she pulled out of the gas station and headed toward the edge of town, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over, not even close. He wasn't just following. He wasn't just angry. He wasn't giving up because men like him don't give up. They just change their strategy. And somewhere out there, in the dark, he was rewriting his entire plan around one goal, finishing what he started tonight. And I knew deep in my bones that he would try again. When my sister pushed open the front door of my mother's house, I expected comfort, safety, something familiar that could drown out the terror that had been dripping into my life for weeks. Instead, the air felt tight, like the walls themselves knew something I didn't. My mother was sitting on the couch, her hands folded in her lap in that stiff, anxious way she used to have when I got sick as a child. "You're here," she whispered, standing slowly and pulling me into her arms. Her hug should have grounded me, but all I felt was the thundering panic in my chest. She looked over my shoulder at my sister. "You told her?" My sister nodded. She heard everything herself. "Mom. He was in the restroom with her. He said he'd get the money tonight." My mother flinched, like the words were knives. She held my face gently and whispered, "We're going to keep you safe." And yet, the way she said it, it wasn't reassurance. It sounded more like fear, real fear. We sat in the living room, lights dimmed, curtains shut tight. My mother kept glancing at the front window, then at her phone, then back at me. Her unease wasn't normal. It was bigger, deeper. I finally asked, "Mom, what aren't you telling me?" She froze. My sister turned sharply toward her. "You know something?" Mom pressed her lips together, like she was debating whether to bury the truth or finally unearth it. "I didn't want to say anything because I knew you loved him," she whispered. "And I didn't want to believe what I saw." My blood turned cold. "What? Did you see?" She rubbed her palms together anxiously, trembling. "3 months after your wedding," she said, her voice barely audible, "I saw him parked outside our old house at 2 a.m. My sister and I stared at her." Mom continued, "I thought maybe he was waiting to surprise you with something, but I went outside to see if he needed help and he—" She swallowed hard. "He sped away the second he saw me." My skin crawled. Why would he be watching our house? My mother hesitated. Because he'd already come by earlier that evening, twice. And when I asked him what he was doing there, he smiled and said he was learning the neighborhood. But we didn't live there anymore, and he knew that. My throat tightened. "You're saying he was stalking us? Even before we lived together?" Mom nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "And one day, before your wedding, I saw him talking to a man behind the pharmacy near my job. He was handing him money. A lot of money. When he noticed me watching, he waved like nothing was wrong. But the man he was paying, he walked away fast, like he didn't want to be seen." My stomach twisted painfully. My sister whispered, "Mom, why didn't you tell us sooner?" Mom covered her face. "Because she was happy. Because I convinced myself he was just planning something. Because I thought maybe I was imagining danger where there wasn't any. But the truth is, I never felt safe around him." The room fell into suffocating silence. My pulse throbbed in my ears. That wasn't just a mistake. That wasn't a coincidence. That was premeditated, deliberate surveillance. He'd been planning something long before I ever suspected anything. Before I knew the depth of his obsession, before I knew how twisted he really was. And then, as if the universe wanted to confirm every fear that had just risen from my mother's confession, my phone buzzed. A single notification. "Unknown number. You ran to the wrong place." My breath stopped. My sister grabbed the phone. Her face turned ghost, white. "How does he know where we are?" My mother shook her head desperately. "He can't. I never posted my address anywhere. No one knows I moved here except you two and the realtor. Another notification. Come home. Now. Or, I'll come get you myself. My mother gasped like someone had punched her. My sister locked the doors immediately, checking every window, every curtain, every latch. I felt like I was sinking, drowning. Maybe he's bluffing, I whispered, though even I didn't believe it. My mother touched my shoulder gently. No, he's not. Her voice was low, steady, terrifyingly certain. He came here once before. My lungs collapsed. When? Mom bit her lip, her eyes distant, tortured. A few weeks ago. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to scare you. It was one night around 11 p.m. Someone knocked. I opened the door a crack, thinking it was the neighbor needing help. But it was him. My sister exhaled sharply. Mom, why didn't you tell us? Because he acted so normal, she whispered. He said he'd been in the neighborhood dropping off something for work. He said he came to check on you because you weren't answering your phone. He asked if you were here. When I told him no, that I hadn't seen you in days, something in his face changed. Just for a second. It was small, but it was dark. My hands shook uncontrollably. Mom, he was mapping everything out. Everything. She nodded slowly, as if finally admitting it to herself too. I know. Then 3 taps on the front window. Not loud, not aggressive, just soft, deliberate, like a message. My sister's hand flew to her mouth. My mother's eyes widened. I couldn't breathe. Tap, tap, tap. My sister stepped backward, whispering, "Someone's outside." My mother grabbed her phone. "I'm calling the police." But before she could dial, another notification flashed on my screen. Unknown number. You left your lights on in the kitchen. The kitchen. The kitchen window faced the backyard, which meant he was behind the house, watching us. My sister ran to the kitchen to turn off the light and froze. "Oh my God," her voice cracked. "Mom, she needs to see this." I forced myself up, my legs trembling so violently I nearly fell. She pointed at the kitchen counter. I didn't see anything at first. Then I did. My lipstick, the one that had been in my purse earlier today, the one I hadn't taken out all day. It was sitting neatly in the center of the counter, perfectly placed, like a signature. My voice broke into a whisper. He was inside the house. Before any of us could speak, the backyard motion sensor light flicked on. Slow footsteps approached the back door. And then a shadow slid across the glass, taller than any of us. Familiar, waiting, watching, and unmistakably him. The handle of the back door rattled once. My mother screamed. My sister pulled me back into the hallway, and as the footsteps stopped, my phone buzzed one more time. Unknown number. Don't hide from me. The moment the back door handle rattled, something inside me split clean open, fear so sharp it felt like electricity running through my bones. My sister dragged me deeper into the hallway as my mother fumbled with her phone, her hands shaking so violently she could barely press the emergency call button. My heart thudded so loud I thought he might hear it through the walls. The motion sensor light was still glowing white across the kitchen tile, casting a long, distorted shadow of the man standing just inches away from breaching our one last barrier. My mother whispered, "The police are on their way. They're coming. They're coming." But it sounded like she was trying to convince herself more than us. Another vibration in my pocket. Another message. "Don't make this harder." My sister snatched the phone from me and turned it off completely, her eyes glassy with panic. Then she whispered, "We have to move. He knows the layout. We need to get upstairs." But the second she said it, a new sound echoed from above us. A single creak, the unmistakable groan of floorboards bending under someone's weight. Upstairs. All 3 of us froze. My breath stilled in my throat like it had been ripped away. My mother grabbed my arm. "No," she mouthed. "No, no, not upstairs." My sister's face turned the color of paper. "Mom," she whispered, "who else has a key to the house?" Mom didn't answer, because we all knew the answer. Him. He had been here before. He had walked these halls before. He had stood behind these doors before, and he had made sure he could come back. The footsteps upstairs were slow, heavy, unhurried, like he was enjoying every second of our terror. My mother put a finger to her lips, signaling us to stay quiet, then motioned us toward the laundry closet under the stairs. It was cramped, suffocating, but it was hidden, a place he wouldn't think to look immediately. My sister helped me inside first, then squeezed in after me. My mother slid in last, shutting the thin wooden door until only a sliver of hallway light cut across the floor, and then silence. Utter, strangling silence. My lungs felt too tight to work. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the thermostat, the blood pounding behind my ears. Then the footsteps moved again, slowly, descending the stairs. Each creak of wood felt like a countdown. My mother covered her mouth with both hands. My sister gripped my knee so tight I thought she'd draw blood. The footsteps reached the bottom of the staircase, stopped, shifted, and then he spoke. "You always hide in the stupidest places." His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It was casual, amused, like he was talking to a child playing a predictable game. My sister's nails dug into my skin. My mother shook silently, tears streaming down her face. He walked into the living room, his shoes tapped lightly on the wood floor. He sighed dramatically. "You know, I really didn't want to do it this way, but you left me no choice." My heart hammered against my ribs so violently I thought it would give away our hiding spot. He walked into the kitchen next. Opened drawers, opened cabinets. He wasn't rushing, he was savoring. "You should have just come home," he murmured. "You should have stayed quiet." Something metal clattered onto the counter. A long pause. Then he laughed softly. "You should have trusted me." Footsteps moved again, this time toward the hallway closet directly across from ours. He opened it. Hangers rattled. "Are you scared?" he called out. "Because you should be." My mother's breath hitched, and for a second I thought she might faint. Then another sound outside. A car pulling up, tires grinding gravel, headlights washing briefly against the front window, a door slamming. 2, maybe 3 voices, male voices. My mother's eyes widened. The police. He heard it too. His tone changed instantly, snapping from cold amusement to urgent fury. "You called them?" he hissed, his voice razor sharp. "You stupid!" A loud pounding on the front door cut him off. "Police! Open the door!" His footsteps bolted toward the back of the house. Cabinets slammed. Something fell. The back door jerked once, twice, then flew open with a violent crack. Cold air rushed through the kitchen. Mom reached for the closet door, whispering, "Stay here," but my sister grabbed her wrist, shaking her head fiercely. "No, no, no." We stayed, packed together in that dark, suffocating closet, listening as the police stormed through the front door, shouting orders, clearing rooms, boots pounding against the floor. One officer yanked open our closet door, flashlight blinding us for a moment before he lowered it. "You're safe now," he said, though the look in his eyes told us he wasn't sure that was true. They swarmed the house, searching every room, every closet, every corner. But the back door was wide open, and he was gone. They took statements. My mother could barely speak. My sister told them everything: the stalking, the threats, the restroom confession I'd heard, the messages, the lipstick placed deliberately on the counter. One officer radioed for additional patrol units around the neighborhood. Another took photos of the scene, including the smeared footprint on the kitchen tile and the marks on the back door frame where he'd forced it open. When they finally left, the house felt hollow, like a crime scene, like a place that had been touched by something evil. My mother walked us upstairs slowly, showing us the hallway, and then she froze, because there, on her bed, placed neatly on the pillow, was my bracelet, the one I lost 3 days ago. The one I thought had fallen off at home. My mother whispered, "He wasn't just here tonight." And in that moment I understood something I hadn't realized until now. He wasn't running, he wasn't hiding. He was playing, and he wasn't finished, not even close. I stared at the bracelet on my mother's pillow, the metal glinting faintly under the bedroom lamp like it was mocking me, like it was whispering that he had been here longer than any of us ever dared imagine. My sister covered her mouth, whispering, "No, no, he wouldn't." But even her denial sounded hollow. My mother backed away slowly, shaking her head in tiny jerks as if trying to physically push away the truth. "He was upstairs," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He was upstairs earlier today, maybe even last night." My chest tightened until it hurt. My mind raced. If he'd been upstairs before, when? How many times? Had he walked past this very hallway while we were sitting downstairs thinking we were safe? The thought made my skin crawl. My sister grabbed the bracelet with a tissue, refusing to touch it. "This means he had time," she said. "He didn't just run when the police arrived. He planted this. He wanted us to find it." She looked at me with wide eyes. "He's telling you that he can get to you anywhere." My stomach dipped, a nauseating freefall. My mother went to close the bedroom door, but stopped when she noticed the small misalignment in the latch. "This door was open," she whispered. "I know I closed it this morning." No one spoke. The silence itself turned into something sharp, something heavy, something that pressed down on us from every direction. Finally, my mother said, "We're leaving this room. Now." We went back downstairs, but the air felt different, colder somehow, like a draft was passing through even though every window was shut. The police had left 2 officers parked outside in a patrol car, but the small comfort they should have brought didn't reach me. Not really. My sister locked every door again, double-checked every window. She paced restlessly. "We should leave," she said. "We should go to a hotel or something." My mother shook her head. "We're safer here. The police know this address. They're already outside. If we go anywhere else, we lose that." She was right, but my body still felt wired, electric with fear. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look. My hands shook, but my sister grabbed it before I did. Her expression hardened into something between rage and horror. "It's from him," she said. I felt the room tilt. She read it aloud. "You're always surrounded by people who make you weak." Weak. He used that word often, quietly, casually, like a correction, like a warning. Another text came in immediately after. "They won't protect you." My throat closed. My mother reached for me and held my hand tightly. My sister, trembling now, turned the phone off again and shoved it into a drawer. "We are not letting him talk to us anymore," she said fiercely. But a part of me knew it didn't matter. He didn't need to send messages to get in our heads. He already had us spiraling. My mother guided me to the couch, stroking my hair, whispering, "It'll be okay." But her voice cracked at the end. Hours passed. No more footsteps. No more messages. No more shadows at the window, just silence heavy enough to crush bone. The officers outside checked in twice, flashlights sweeping the yard. My sister stayed awake with me, refusing to sleep, pacing quietly, jumping at every creak of the floor, every gust of wind. Around 3 a.m., there was a soft thump from above us. My sister froze mid-step. My mother stopped pouring tea. All 3 of us stared at the ceiling. Another soft thump. But this wasn't footsteps. No, this was something else, something dragging, something shifting weight. My stomach clenched so tight I nearly doubled over. My mother whispered, "He's not still here, right?" My sister grabbed the nearest object, a heavy candle holder, and tiptoed toward the stairs like she expected a monster to appear on the landing at any moment. "I'm getting the officers," she whispered, and slipped outside barefoot, her body shivering from cold and fear. While she ran toward the police car, my mother sat beside me, gripping my hands. "We're okay," she whispered, rocking slightly. "We're okay." But even she didn't believe it. The officers entered seconds later, moving fast but controlled. They signaled for us to stay back. Weapons drawn, they ascended the stairs slowly, checking corners, clearing rooms, opening closets. My heart hammered. I listened for anything, a shout, a scuffle, a sudden crash. Instead, after a few minutes, one officer called out, "Ma'am, could you come up here?" My mother rose reluctantly, pulling me with her. My sister followed behind, hugging her arms as she walked. The officer stood at the top of the stairs, pointing to the attic access panel above the hallway. The ladder was lowered halfway, hanging at an awkward angle. My mother whispered, "That wasn't like that before." The officer nodded. We found several footprints on the attic boards, fresh ones. My blood ran ice cold. The officer continued, "It looks like he was up there for hours, possibly before you arrived." maybe even while the police were here earlier. My knees buckled. My mother caught me, my sister's face drained of color. The officer held up a small object inside an evidence bag. And we found this up there. It was my keychain, the one with my initials. The one I didn't even realize was missing. Something inside me broke then, not from fear, but from the realization that his access, his presence, his knowledge of my movements wasn't coincidence. It was intentional, calculated, practiced. The officer said, "He's been watching you for longer than you think." And for the first time since this nightmare began, it hit me with undeniable clarity. He didn't just want my money. He didn't just want control. He wanted ownership. He wanted territory. And in his mind, I was the property he believed he still had full rights to. As we stood in that hallway under the open attic door, cold air drifting down like a warning, I understood something terrifyingly simple. He wasn't trying to catch me. He was setting the stage. He was waiting, watching. And whatever came next, he had already planned it. The officers sealed off the attic and swept through the yard again, but even after they assured us he was gone, that they'd stay parked outside until morning, I couldn't shake the sensation that he was still near, still watching, still waiting for the next move he'd already choreographed long before I ever discovered the first. We were all too shaken to go back upstairs, so we stayed together in the living room, the lights on, the curtains shut tight. My sister paced in and out of the kitchen, unable to sit still, like her body was trying to outrun the reality we were trapped in. My mother sat on the edge of the couch, her hands trembling around a cup of tea she never actually drank. I felt hollow, but alert, like my body had gone into a survival mode I didn't know I was capable of. The officers came back inside briefly. "We've checked the perimeter again," one of them said. "There are no signs he's still nearby." His reassurance meant nothing. The most terrifying thing about him wasn't when he was visible, it was when he disappeared. My mother tried to calm herself, whispering, "The sun will rise soon," like daylight had the power to reverse madness. But even she didn't sound convinced. My sister suddenly stopped pacing and said, "We need to tell someone else, not the police. Someone who knows him." I looked up sharply. "Who?" She hesitated. My stomach tightened. "His brother," she whispered. The room felt like it cracked. His brother, the shadow figure he never spoke about, the one he pretended didn't exist, the one I met once at our wedding, who barely spoke but stared at me with an unsettling familiarity, like he was trying to memorize something he thought belonged to him. "Absolutely not," my mother snapped, her fear turning to anger. "No more involving people we don't know." "But he might know something," my sister insisted. "If anyone knows how far he'll go, it's someone who grew up with him." I shook my head. No, we can't trust him. He's just like him." My sister's jaw tightened. Maybe not. But we're running out of options." Before I could argue, my mother's phone rang. Unknown number. All three of us froze. My mother's hand trembled violently as she answered on speaker. "Hello?" For a moment, there was only static, then a voice, low, calm, male. "He's not finished." My mother nearly dropped the phone. My sister lunged forward. "Who is this?" Silence. Then the voice again. "You need to leave the house." "Who is this?" she demanded again, her tone sharp with panic. "A warning," the voice said. "He's not working alone." And then the line went dead. My skin erupted in chills. My mother whispered, "That wasn't him." My sister shook her head. No, the voice was different. But the message was worse than anything he could have sent himself. My mother moved toward the kitchen, grabbing her purse. "We're leaving, now," but I hesitated. What if it's a trick? My sister stopped cold. "You think he'd call pretending to be someone else?" "He's done worse," I whispered. "He's planted things, followed us, broken into homes, watched us sleep. Nothing is off limits." Another knock at the door, soft, 3 taps. Just like before. My sister gasped. My mother rushed to the peephole. 2 police officers, the same ones stationed outside. They motioned for us to open the door. When we did, their expressions were tense, urgent. "We need you all to stay away from the windows," one of them said. Someone just triggered motion sensors at the back of the property. My mother's knees buckled. My sister pulled her away from the door. "He came back?" The officer shook his head. We don't know if it was him. Could have been an animal. The certainty in his voice wasn't real. He knew it too. He gestured behind him toward the patrol car. We're requesting backup. Until then, stay where we can see you. But the idea of standing inches from windows made my skin crawl. My sister whispered, "This is a trap." Before I could ask what she meant, she grabbed my hand. "This isn't him chasing us. This is him cornering us, hurting us where he wants us." I stared at her. Why would he want us here? My sister swallowed hard. Because the police are watching the outside. The realization hit me like a punch. If he wanted to get to me without getting caught, he wouldn't come from outside. He'd already proven he could enter unnoticed. My mother whispered, "We can't stay here." The officers outside were scanning the backyard with flashlights, unaware that inside this house, panic was choking us. Then, an unmistakable sound. The soft click of a doorknob turning. But not the front door, not the back door, the basement door, the one none of us had touched tonight. My mother grabbed my wrist with a force I didn't know she had. My sister's breathing quickened into sharp, shallow gasps. The sound came again, slow, methodical. A third click, then the soft whine of hinges moving. My heart slammed against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The basement door opened an inch, then another, then another. A hand appeared around the edge of the door, pale, familiar, and a voice floated up the stairs smooth, controlled, too calm to be anything but terrifying. "You should have stayed hidden in the restroom stall," my sister screamed. My mother pushed me behind her, and the basement door swung wide open. The basement door swung open so violently that it hit the wall with a hollow crack, and for a split second everything in me froze solid, as if my body forgot how to function, how to breathe, how to exist. My mother clutched my hand so hard her nails dug into my skin, but I barely felt it. All I could focus on was the figure emerging from the darkness below, one slow step at a time, like he was stepping out of a grave he'd dug for us long before tonight. His smile was small, almost polite, but his eyes, those empty, calculating eyes, flicked from my mother to my sister and finally landed on me with a familiarity that made my stomach twist. "You made this more complicated than it needed to be," he said calmly, brushing dust off his sleeve as if he were just coming home from work. My sister positioned herself in front of me protectively, gripping the heavy candle holder like she was ready to swing it with every ounce of strength she had left. My mother backed us up slowly, her voice a trembling whisper. "The police are outside." "I know," he said simply. "They've been circling the yard for nearly an hour. They're looking in all the wrong places." He paused on the final step and tilted his head slightly, studying us like a scientist observing frightened animals. "It's interesting," he said quietly, "how people think police guarantee safety. They don't. They just create blind spots." His tone was conversational, almost bored, and somehow that terrified me more than if he'd been screaming. My sister lifted the candle holder higher. "Don't come closer." He laughed soft, amused, like she'd told a harmless joke. "You think that's going to stop me?" Then he took a step forward. My sister swung. Hard. But he moved with terrifying precision, catching her wrist mid-air and twisting it sharply behind her back until she cried out. My mother screamed. I lunged forward without thinking, driven by pure instinct, but he released my sister just long enough to shove her aside and grab me instead, his hand clamping over my arm with bruising force. "Don't," he warned my mother, raising a finger toward her without even looking her way. "You'll only make this uglier." The officers outside called out something, but the words were muffled. They hadn't heard us. They hadn't seen anything. And he knew it. My sister, struggling to get up, gasped, "Why are you doing this?" He exhaled slowly, as if the question annoyed him. "I told her," he said, leaning close enough that I could feel his breath on my cheek. "All she had to do was come home. Stay quiet. Follow the plan." His grip tightened. "But she doesn't listen." I could hear my pulse pounding in my ears. My voice came out a trembling whisper. "What plan?" He smiled again, small and cold. "The same one I've been working on for years." My sister crawled closer, grabbing my ankle. "Let her go," she choked out. "You can't get out of here. The police will see you." "They won't," he said. "Not if I'm careful." He dragged me toward the basement door, but my mother stepped in front of him, shaking so badly her teeth chattered. "You'll have to go through me," she said. Her voice cracked, but her stance didn't waver. He stopped, raised an eyebrow. "Move," he said quietly. "No." My mother's answer was soft, but it was final. Something in his expression shifted. Not anger, no, something worse. Disappointment. "You always were too sentimental," he murmured. Then, so fast, none of us saw it coming, he shoved my mother aside. She fell hard against the table, sending a lamp crashing to the floor. My sister screamed. I fought to pull free, kicking, twisting, but he dragged me down the first 2 steps of the basement stairway before suddenly freezing, because the front door burst open. "Police, step away from her." The officers had finally heard the crash. Their flashlights cut through the hallway, illuminating his face, and for the first time tonight, I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Not fear, calculation. He held on to me for one more heartbeat. Then he let go, but he didn't surrender. Instead, he darted backward into the basement darkness like a wild animal retreating to its den. The officers rushed past me, chasing him down the stairs, yelling commands, footsteps pounding against wood. My mother crawled to me, sobbing, pulling me into her arms so tightly I could barely breathe. My sister scrambled beside us, clutching her wrist. We huddled together, waiting for the sound of a struggle, the sound of him being dragged out in cuffs, the sound of this nightmare ending. But instead, silence. One officer yelled, "He's not here." Another shouted, "Back door in the basement is open." The possibility slammed into me like ice water. "He escaped," I whispered. My sister's eyes widened in horror. "He planned this." My mother held my face in her shaking hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. "He won't stop," she whispered. "Not until he gets what he wants." The officers rushed back upstairs, calling for units to search the woods behind the property. They assured us they would find him, that he couldn't get far. But I knew better. He always stayed one step ahead. He always had an exit, a plan, a backup plan, and another one after that. As dawn began to break through the curtains, painting the living room in pale gray light, a chilling realization settled into my bones. He didn't escape because he was running. He escaped because this was only the beginning, and he wasn't done with me. Not even close. I remember gripping the edge of the motel sink so hard my fingers ached, my reflection staring back at me like a stranger trapped behind a fogged-up mirror. My face looked older somehow, carved by sleepless nights, carved by betrayal, carved by the kind of fear you don't recover from easily. I had spent the entire night replaying his words again and again in my head, the way he'd bragged to his mistress, the way he talked about getting my money tonight, the way he spoke about me like I was just a piece of property standing between him and the life he thought he deserved. And now, after everything that had happened, the chase, the stalking, the near discovery, here I was, hiding in a place that smelled like bleach and cigarette smoke, listening to the thin motel walls creak with each passing car, terrified he would somehow find me through sheer instinct. My sister slept beside me, fully dressed, one shoe still on her foot as if she hadn't even dared to relax enough to take it off. Every few minutes she jerked, gasping lightly, the trauma leaking into her dreams. I sat on the bed's edge, holding my phone, scrolling through the voice recordings, the photos, the texts, the time-stamped proof of everything he had done, not just this week, not just this month, but the entire hidden life he'd been building behind my back. I had all the evidence, enough to destroy him, enough to put him away, enough to end his facade permanently. But there was one thing I didn't have: courage. I hated admitting that, even to myself. I had survived him. I had survived manipulation, humiliation, mental decay, threats, financial control, slowly losing pieces of myself until I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. And yet the idea of walking into a police station suddenly felt impossible, like I was asking myself to voluntarily step into fire. What if no one believed me? What if he charmed his way through, like he always did? What if he turned everything on me, the way he had done countless times before, flipping the script so effortlessly that eventually even I questioned my own memories? As the sun rose, bleeding pale gold through the curtains, I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "You either end this today, or he ends you soon." The thought alone chilled my bones. My sister stirred awake, her hair sticking to her cheek, her voice hoarse. "He called me again last night," she whispered. 7 times. Left voicemails. He sounds angry now. Not desperate. Angry. I swallowed, the air thick in my throat. Angry meant dangerous. Angry meant cornered. Angry meant he was no longer playing games. He was hunting. "We need help," I finally forced out, the words trembling but true. "Real help. Not running. Not hiding. We need someone who will actually protect us." My sister nodded slowly. "Then we go to the police." But fate, like always, didn't wait for me to be ready. Because before we could leave the motel room, before I could even zip my bag all the way, there was a distinct noise outside the door. Soft, heavy, deliberate, footsteps. My entire body froze, my lungs locking inside my chest as if someone had reached inside and twisted them. My sister's eyes widened, and she mouthed one word without sound. "Him." My heart slammed against my ribs so violently I thought it might crack them. How? How had he found the motel? Had he tracked my phone, followed my sister, paid someone? Or was it exactly what I feared? That he simply knew me so well, after years of manipulation, that he could predict every place I would run. The shadow under the motel door shifted, moved, paused. I slowly grabbed my sister's wrist and pulled her toward the bathroom, closing the door silently behind us. The echo of our own breathing felt deafening in the tiny tiled space. My phone vibrated, a text from an unknown number. No, not unknown. Him. "Funny, you really thought you could hide from me?" My sister covered her mouth to keep from making a sound. Another text. "You're going to come out on your own, or I'll break this door down and drag you out." My pulse roared in my ears like a drumbeat. My entire spine tingled with dread. Another text. "We're finishing this today." My hands trembled so violently, I almost dropped the phone. My sister's voice cracked in a whisper. "Call someone. Anyone. Call the police now." "No," I hissed, shaking my head. "If he hears us." A sudden bang shook the motel door. Not with full force. Not yet. But enough to let us know he meant what he said. My sister grabbed my shoulders. "Then call someone who won't hesitate." Her eyes burned with fear and fury. "Call Mom." I stared at her. Mom, the one person he truly feared. Not because she was violent, but because she saw straight through him. Always had. I pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice. She answered immediately. "Baby, where are you?" I whispered in a voice that barely existed. "Mom, he found us." Silence. Then a tone I had never heard from her before, cold, controlled, lethal. "Keep the door locked. I'm on my way." Before I could reply, another sound exploded from outside the motel room this time. A crash, a roar, a violent jolt that shook the frame. He had started kicking the door in. My sister squeezed my hand. My mother's voice echoed faintly through the phone. "Stall him. Do not open that door." And right then, just as the door splintered, my story became something far darker than survival. It became war. When the final crack thundered through the motel door frame, I felt something inside me snap too. Not fear this time, not paralysis, but a sharp, violent clarity, slicing through my chest like ice. My sister squeezed my hand so tightly her nails dug into my skin, and for the first time in hours, I wasn't trembling. I was awake. Awake in a way trauma forces you awake. Awake like a woman who has finally realized nobody is coming to save her unless she drags salvation to her herself. The door buckled, splintered again, and he shouted my name in a voice that made the walls shiver. Not my pet name, not the soft, performative husband tone he used around neighbors. No, my real name, spit out like a threat he'd been waiting years to unleash. I could see the frame bending inward as he rammed it again. The motel manager yelled something from down the walkway, but even he sounded terrified. Then, from somewhere outside, tires screeched. Not frantic, not sloppy, controlled, deliberate. My sister's eyes widened. "Mom, it happened fast." The door finally burst inward, wood exploding like shrapnel, and my husband stumbled in, wild-eyed, breathing hard, his hair damp with sweat. His gaze flicked across the room and locked onto the bathroom door with a smile that made my stomach twist. But before he could take a step toward us, a voice snapped through the broken doorway behind him. "Don't move. Ice, pure ice. My mother. My husband froze just for a second, but that second was everything. He turned slowly, trying to slip back into his charm, lifting his hands as if he were the injured party. Sharon, let's not. She stepped into the room like a storm trapped in human skin, her jaw clenched so hard a vein pulsed along her neck. Take one more step toward my daughters, she said quietly, and I swear to God, you will regret it. He laughed nervously, trying to regain control. Sharon, you're overreacting. They're confused. I heard the recordings. The color drained from his face. My mother held up my phone, the same phone I'd left on the bed, recording every threat he'd texted, every voicemail he'd left, every word he'd snarled through the door. His mouth twitched. My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice. You forget who raised her. You forget who taught her to document everything. He tried again. Sharon, let's talk about this like adults. You know how unstable she gets. You know how she... My mother slapped him so hard the sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. He stumbled, stunned, one hand on his cheek. Call my daughter unstable again, she whispered, and I'll make sure you never speak another word. He lunged suddenly, grabbing her wrist, but my sister burst from the bathroom first, screaming for him to stop, and the three of them collided in the middle of the room. I didn't even think I threw myself into them too, clawing at his arm, trying to rip him away from her. He shoved me back so violently I hit the dresser, pain exploding down my spine, but before he could reach me again, my mother swung the heavy motel lamp into his shoulder. He roared, stumbling into the wall. My sister pulled me up, and Mom shouted, "Get outside, now." We ran into the parking lot just as another car screeched to a halt near the office. Then another, and another. People were spilling out of rooms, shouting. A woman from 2 doors down yelled, "We called the police. They're almost here." My heart hammered. The night felt electric, buzzing with panic and adrenaline. Then I saw him stumble out of the motel door, face red, chest heaving, eyes burning with something feral, and he ran toward me. Not toward my mom, not toward my sister, me, because he didn't want to escape. He didn't want to negotiate. He wanted to finish what he started. I backed away, my feet scraping the pavement, but he kept coming, breathing like an animal. The whole world narrowed to the sound of his footsteps, and then red and blue lights flooded the parking lot. A police SUV flew in sideways, officers jumping out before the wheels stopped. "Get away from her," an officer shouted. My husband spun around, hands raised, voice switching instantly to the wounded victim tone he wore like a costume. "Officer, officer, they're confused. I'm trying to keep them safe." "We have the recordings," the officer barked, cutting him off. "Hands behind your head. Now." My husband's smile faltered. "Recordings?" The officer nodded toward me. "She sent them." That was the moment he realized. Not when we ran, not when my mother hit him, not when he heard the sirens. No, right then, when he understood I had finally stopped being afraid of him. His eyes met mine, filled with something dark and hateful. "You think this ends here?" he hissed as the officers forced him to his knees. "You think you've won?" I stepped forward, shaky but steady enough. "No," I said softly. "It didn't end here. It ended the moment I stopped loving you." His face twisted anger, shock, betrayal, and then they dragged him into the back of the police car. The door slammed, the lock clicked. And just like that, the world exhaled. My knees gave out, my sister grabbed me, and my mother wrapped her arms around both of us. I cried in a way I hadn't cried in years, loud, shaking, ugly, real. That was the moment I realized I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't running. I wasn't his victim. I was free. I survived the man who planned my destruction. And now, I get to tell the story he never wanted anyone to hear.